Hello and welcome to this episode of the P&E podcast. My name's Jack Jacob and I am your host. In this episode, I have an enlightening conversation with Adrian Ball, who's the Chief Executive of the Diocese of Ely Multi-Academy Trust. Adrian and I talk about how much he enjoyed growing up in Norfolk and how he's maintained a strong connection to the area, quoting, "Norfolk's got me." Although Adrian had early ambitions to work in the stock market, but lost out on a place in the London School of Economics, meant he had to rethink what he wanted to do with his life, and this ultimately drove him to attend Brunel University to study sports science and play in their university rugby team. Through his involvement in sport and outreach from club and university teams, coaching in local schools, Adrian discovered a passion for education that set him on a path to where he is now. This strong background in sport has also instilled with him an unrivalled sense of camaraderie and the importance of not letting those around you down. As a leader, Adrian understands the importance of setting direction and vision, but also the value of recognising gaps in your own skill set and building a team around you that complements you. Please do enjoy this episode as we get to know the person behind the job title. Well, Adrian, thank you so much for being on the podcast. Really appreciate your time. So, as you know, it's all about getting to know the person behind the job title. So let's start at the start for you. So, talk to me about your background. Where'd you grow up?
Okay, so most of my upbringing has been in Norfolk. My parents moved us here, and I think when I was 9 maybe. Prior to that, I had a little bit of time in Grimsby and a little bit of time in Billericay in Essex.
Yeah,
I've been in Norfolk most of my life. Mum and dad moved around when they were younger with my dad's work. So he was the first person in his family not to go down the pits, and Mum was the first person in her family not to go and work in the Royal Dalton factory.
Oh, there we go.
So they both left Stoke-on-Trent fairly early on in their lives with the jobs. Followed Dad around for a bit, and then we settled in Norfolk when he started working in London.
Yeah. So what did he do then?
He was in insurance.
Right.
So he worked most of his life for Norwich Union, and then branched out over the last few, just before retirement.
Yeah.
So it's fairly straightforward. They did the best for us, and by moving to Norfolk was fantastic. It's a lovely place to live. That's why we've settled here with ours. Not too far away. My brother and sister have moved off, but I've Norfolk's got me.
Yeah, well, there we go.
So now I did my little rural high school in Norfolk. I think we had about 450 people on roll, so very, very, very small.
Yeah.
Did all right there. Moved into Norwich, do my A-levels, and then off to university. So I never really knew what I was going to do, and that was the.
I was going to ask, was there anything you particularly wanted to do when you was growing up, or was it fell into?
Yeah, when I was in year 10. Something like that, year 9, year 10.
Yeah.
It was when Nick Leeson brought down Barings Bank, and that brought stock market trading up. So I thought, I fancy it. Not necessarily doing Nick Leeson, but I certainly fancy stock market trading.
Yeah.
So I was all set to go to a place at LSE for economics, and didn't do as well as I thought at my levels. I didn't do the right ones, and I had to have a rethink, and that's when I got an offer for a place at Brunel to read sports science and play rugby. So I took the reduced offer on the condition I played for the rugby team, and never looked back. It's by chance I saw it come up, sent my rugby CV in, and they offered a place in the sports science course.
Nice. So what you play at decent level?
I not anymore.
Yeah.
No, too old, too slow nowadays. But no, did all right when I was in my years. All the sort of county, regional, divisional stuff.
Yeah.
Got to university. We played for them. We won the British Championships in when was it? 2002. Things like that. So rugby's been that drive. Personally, in the early part of my life, everything kind of centered around that, and it's sort of through that I almost fell into teaching. Part of the outreach work we did as a team, both university and the club team, was coaching in local schools.
Yeah.
Part of that coaching, that I thought, well,
quite enjoy this.
I like this.
Get to keep doing sporty stuff.
Yeah,
and get paid for it.
This works. I'm enjoying this. So I applied for a teacher training PGCE at the UEA in Norwich, and got on and became a PE teacher.
Yeah, I was going to say, because I saw that you was head of PE at one point.
Boys PE,
head of boys PE, yeah. So there you go. So talk to me about dovetail back into sport a sec. Talk to me about how you felt, particularly rugby, but sport in general, played a part in kind of leadership qualities that you have within you.
I think I'm not sure so much from me, it's from the leadership qualities, but it's more of that camaraderie and working together. That the fact when you're in that team situation, and it's just been instilled into me that throughout when you're in that work position, about not letting those around you down. And I think that's the bit that really gets me, is when people can back out or not try as hard as perhaps they ought to.
Yeah.
I think that's something that's always driven me, in not wanting to letting anyone else down, and to do the best I can. Is that attraction to completing the team's goal, the team's focus, and it's that attitude that I've taken into work, into teaching. You're doing the best for the kids in your care, whether it's in that individual class, whether it's when you're a head teacher for your whole, head of department for the whole year group, or whether you're a head teacher for the children and staff within your whole school. So that's the part of it. And then the other part that sports taught me is that it's my downfall at times, but that competitive edge. I don't like to lose.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, feel you with that one, definitely. So I played rugby growing up. So I went from playing football to about the age of 10, and then sort of over to rugby from the age of about 10 to about the age of 16, until basically everyone got bigger and I didn't. And then I thought, I'm going to die here. Everyone was like, playing rugby, you either lose the scrawny kids, and I stayed on basically, and I was still scrawny, and it's basically the people that had like quicker, gone through puberty quicker basically, and were a bit butcher and a bit, and I just thought, so at the age of like 16, 17, I thought, well, I think everyone's quite a bit bigger than me now, and then my height came in after that, well, so did the weight, but that's probably to do with beer and takeaways more than
There's sort of monsters in my time, and that's when I realized. That's when I realized it was time to retire from playing regularly. Is when I was having to rely on cunning to get myself around the pitch, rather than the strength and speed, which was gradually disappearing as I seemed to be getting older and everyone else seemed to be getting younger.
Yeah.
So I thought it's time to step away gracefully. And find something new.
Indeed. So, but yeah, I think there's definitely a direct correlation between kind of sport activity and business, definitely, and particularly kind of leadership on the field, and whether that's being a captain or whatever, or just having those leadership qualities within you. So talk to me about so you went to university, done your sports science degree, then you went and done your PGCE, and then went down the PE route. So I mean, there's obviously the PE teacher joke there, isn't there? To say, how many times you heard that?
Oh, a fair few, and it's but it keeps recurring. It pops up even now.
Yeah.
Uh, when it comes around to it, that was one of the things early on in the career, where it's the PE, the PE teachers, PE lads. Our first office was a store cupboard at the back of the sports hall. That's where the school leadership stuck us. It's like, you boys just sit with sat there, the bags of balls, the bibs, all of that. And that was what they thought. So gradually, as you move in, as I started to move up through the school, there's always that little bit of prejudice. Is a bit too strong a word, but people always look down their noses a little at the PE teachers.
Yeah.
From that sense, so I had to work hard early on in my career to sort of prove that I knew what I was talking about, and that I had that ability and to get the jobs done that was required.
Yeah, of course. So I was going to ask about that, and installing credibility as a senior leader. And actually, I had a similar conversation with Stephen Chamberlain, who that spoke at our events, and I recorded a podcast with, and he had a kind of a performing arts background, and I had the same question to him. Really, was it hard for you to instill credibility that in a when your background wasn't in a real academics background, wasn't maths, English, or science, right? And could have been seen as fluffy or yeah. So
it was you get that, and then sometimes it's easy to get to where you got to because you never had to do any marking, and there's kind of the backhanded stuff. That may have been the case, may not. I prefer to think of it that I was good at what I do, and if I didn't deserve to get to where I was or do what I was doing, I'd have been moved down fairly sharply. So although I get into a position, but it's then performing and having the impact that you're asked to do. So I think that comes back down to that competitive edge. I don't really, if my boss and my head at the time was brilliant at encouraging me to go for these positions, because I stayed in that one school for a long period of time. And it is him who brought me into the school in the first place, and gradually moved up to the head of sixth form, and he had that understanding and the faith in me that I could be able to do it. So it's worth paying him back as well. He had that faith in me, so I was going to perform and do my very best.
Yeah, makes sense. So is that a leader that you would say you always remember? Someone that kind of that, not that first person that saw something in you, but certainly someone that really elevated you to the next level in your career.
Yeah, he gave me that initial step up into senior leaders as a school leader. We weren't in the best situation as a school. So there are things that I learned what not to do. So that faith in other people and people in your team, finding that talent, is something that I have learned from him. Other things I learned what not to do. And then that school academized. I got a new head teacher, and she was a bit of a force of nature, and she's what who really helped me develop as a senior leader. And made me realise what is possible with strong leadership in schools, what you can achieve.
Yeah, makes sense. So talk to me about then your journey. So from head of sixth form to now CEO of a very, very large multi-academy trust in terms of the number of schools. Was it 39 schools you've got?
39.
Yeah, 39 schools. So talk to me about that journey, because you was coup at Inspiration Trust for a number of years as well, wasn't you?
Yeah, I was. Yeah, so from the head of sixth form role, I was in at Cossey High School, and that school academized into 2009, 2010.
Okay, so quite early on in the academy's agenda type thing, yeah.
Yeah, fairly early on, and when it academized, I was moved into the vice principal role. Then, and so at the time, school was obviously ungraded, and we got it to outstanding within that 3 within that 3 years across all measures. So that was where the whirlwind really started to happen, and you're thinking actually we can move at a lot faster pace and have this much more great belief in what children what they can achieve with really high quality teaching and people who believe in them, supported within a school which has got the structures and systems in place to sort of move in those barriers and just help teachers to do that.
Yeah. How do you put in those, so you've gone from an Ofsted ungraded. Why was it Ofsted ungraded?
Because of the academisation, it was in special measures. It lost, it then ungraded.
Right.
So it started again as a new school, but
right.
all intents and purposes is a failing school.
Okay, fine. So how from I think back to when I was at school, and I think the thing that perhaps let the school that I went to down, and I don't think it was, it wasn't a high performing school by any nature, and quite an old building, that kind of thing. But was the pupils' behaviour. We even myself, I wasn't the best behaved student by any stretch of the imagination. But used to actually quite enjoy being naughty, to be fair, as well. So how do you turn a school around where was it behavioural issues, or was it the quality of teaching that was letting it down? What was the challenges, and how do you then turn that around?
At that school, it was all sorts, but behaviour was poor, and it had always become, there was an accepted norm of what behaviour. What people expected was good behaviour compared to elsewhere. It was absolutely shocking, because you saw it every day. People became almost numb to it. And accepting of lots of low level disruption and poor language, not wearing a uniform, all that kind of bits. And
do you say that's the grassroots then? Uniform being spot on.
Yes, in that one we just changed brand new uniform, a brand new uniform, brand new name of the school, new rules. We spent time with all the staff, training the staff about what they were to expect, what they shouldn't expect, how they would deal with it, putting in the appropriate systems and structures, and all of that. So it was really, in that place, a real root and branch approach to creating a brand new school, literally over the summer, so that it opened fresh. But that's not. I wouldn't advocate doing that in every takeover and every change, because I think in some of the early academy days that was the approach. You academize, it's new name, new uniform, new rules straight in. I think now it'd be a little bit more, when if we asked to bring more schools in to the trust now, I think we've got to assess what the school is, what it needs. If it would benefit from a total change, if it is in trouble and it would benefit from that change of identity, and then perhaps you would go down that route. But if not, it's additional costs to parents and all that kind of thing.
Of course.
I'm thinking a little bit further down the line. But I think if there is a fundamental issue within the school, you've got to change it. And I think that's for too long. It's that kind of, it's the way we've always done things. And actually, no, we can do things better. We can do things differently. I think as I've seen it through, both as a deputy, I did a similar thing when I was a head and executive head, similar contextual situations. The school I was the substantive head of was in special measures, deep in it, and again required a lot of heavy lifting to get it to a position where you'd be happy to send your own kids to that school.
Who'd you get more pushback from, the students or the staff in that scenario?
Parents.
And of course parents. But I mean, so I remember when towards I think year 10 and 11 in my school, they brought in a new head. They then brought in basically two enforcers with her as well. The school was bad behaviour. I don't think he was doing well in terms of performance levels either, grades, etc. But I remember teachers bitching about the head teacher and the new enforcers that had come in to us students. So it was a case where then, you know, there was a whole pushback from the whole school on the you know, from students and the teachers. So that's why I asked the question.
Yeah, no, I think it's about setting. I think that comes down to communication, setting the scene. Yeah, if I'd have gone in to my first headship and just boom, this is it. There's the new rule book. There's this. There's that. Go do. I'd have probably had similar pushbacks. So a lot of it is having that, being able to articulate and sell and show the vision, what you expect, what we'll achieve over the next few years.
Yeah.
Start selling the story, having that narrative by which you stick to. That's the whole point of that. Your leadership role is knowing where you want to get to, and setting the scene and enabling those around you to buy into it, so that you're all pushing and going in the same direction to get to that end goal. So for me, it's about really, when I first walked into the school, it was setting out exactly what we wanted to do, where we're going to get to, why we needed to do it, and bring the staff along. Yeah, there was pushback. I had a few grumpy ones, but I played. I can't even remember what it is now. There's a TED talk.
Yeah.
There's a guy dancing on his own on the hill. Some music festival. There's a chap dancing.
Yeah. And then a few people join, and then a few people join.
And they're all dancing, having a great time.
Yeah.
And I played that about a year in to be set. I played it very early in, and sort of said, you know, that was that was me. First guy runs in, named a member of staff who was very supportive early doors, and just sort of used that as our analogy to show how we were moving as the school moved on. And where, you know, I hadn't seen since that video as a setup. I don't care. I thought it was a great great example of what it meant when you're trying to create that movement in the first instance, and change. It's like, you change the direction of an oil tanker. It's a big school entrenched in its ways, and we're having to change not just staff and pupil behaviour and the way they acted, but the whole culture that existed as well. I've had a parent tell me that why was I enforcing people on wearing ties, because the only person she'd ever seen wear a tie was trying to sell them something at the door. And it's having those conversations, just trying to explain that it goes beyond just the fact what they're wearing. It's we're developing that whole culture, preparing students for their futures, and having those higher aspirations. That's not to say, you know, I'm not wearing one at the moment, but not to say, you know, that's how I'm moving away from you have to have a tie to have a job. It's just having that pride and respect in your appearance.
Yeah.
And that stems from you, regardless of what you wear. When you're getting into employment, you want to look your best. You want to look professional, and so whatever that is, you're going to have to adhere to what the cultural norms are within that organisation.
Yeah, of course, makes sense. Talking about leadership, what does good leadership mean to you then?
I think good leadership, one, as I've already said, you set that direction, set that vision, what you want to achieve. Yep. But the other one is letting go. You can be. You've got to let people do it around you. My CFO is she's my COO and CFO. She's absolutely fantastic in what she does, better than me at it. So, you know, great person to have, and she's not afraid to call me out if I've made, you know, if I say something or we start going down one path. She's not afraid to tell me it's not
the right course of action.
Yeah, and same with my director of education. I've got a brilliant director of education works for me, and again, second to none in that in her position. What she understands and what she can do is fantastic.
Yeah.
But I can't micromanage those pair to do exactly what I've got, an idea I've got in my head, because they're going to be much better the way we work together as a team. To let them have that ability to shape and make their own decisions. And there's a lot of coaching, a lot of questioning that goes on around it to try and shape, and for me to understand their thinking, and then just trying to make sure that they've thought through all of the
thinking,
consequences.
Yeah.
But having that leadership is about finding that those people and letting them go.
Yeah. Makes sense. So going back to your kind of journey, so talk to me about the difference between you working in a school to then and leadership in a school to then leadership within a multi-academy trust.
Yeah, that's a big step up. And I had a practice when I was a chief operating officer at Inspiration. And
Did a practice.
Yeah, on that one, because in that COO role, I was having to. There's a lot more need when you're a head teacher. You've got direct line management over the entire school. Ultimately, it's just a very hierarchical position.
Yeah, you got the head, deputy head, head of years, head of houses.
Yeah, and it all just filters down. So you have got that ability to know exactly what's going on all the time, exactly what's going on. Whilst you can empower and allow your deputies, assistant heads, and all your functional leads to make their own decisions, it's still within your framework very, very tightly. In the COO role, I didn't line manage any of the heads. They all still worked with the CEO, but I still need to make sure that we had common principles, activities, and functions across the trust. So I had to work. That was a big difference for me, to use that leadership in terms of being able to influence and direct staff without hierarchical. I guess being able to just direct people.
Yeah, that you was in a senior position, and it was trying to influence those people, though because I can imagine the pushback already. I report into the CEO, not you, so I'm not listening.
We never got to that level, but it was. Sorry, I'm just.
That's all right. I love this. This is why this is good. This working from home stuff is because it shows the real world, right? The real world, and that is you're at home with your family, and so don't feel bad at all. It's fun.
She pops in on most calls if she's about. She tries to get in on.
She wants to be on the camera, really, doesn't she?
So yeah, but back to that, it's just that's the biggest difference. You're not necessarily directly line managing, and even though in this role, the heads do report in to me for their performance management. I've got 39 schools. I can't, for the best will in the world, know exactly what's going on in all of them at any one time. So it's about having that. The biggest difference now is about having that trust in your team, and trust in the systems and structures you've got in place to ensure that the right information is coming up, and equally that any messages coming from myself, member of the central team, are getting through all the way through the organisation. Someone said to me once, to think about if you gave a message as CEO, how long would it take for that message to reach the very furthest corner of the organisation from you, and would it still have remained the same message, or would it have been diluted and changed?
Yeah,
and that's something I've always thought about. And when we are setting, if there is something that's centrally governed by the trust, is how we can get ensure that clarity of communication throughout the whole organisation. Because again, just going to say just the heads, I've got to trust that message goes through, but how do we know? How do you know? And likewise, information comes through to me, is it being diluted at any point? And that's the biggest. It's a big challenge, and I think that's where schools can learn from I think maths can learn from the commercial sector, because this is fairly new to, still relatively new to us. We're 12, 13 years maths in the making now. Some are a lot newer. We were set up in 2012. DEMAT was. So we're 8 years old. We haven't got to that point where, your Apples, your Googles, your big corporates have this flow of information down to a T in their management systems, and all the rest of that. I think that's where we can learn a little bit more, is how much you can trust and allow, and where do you need those controls to sit.
Yeah, makes sense. So to me, looking at your background, it sounds like a big jump from coup to then CEO, but not just of an organization, but an organization of 39 schools. What was that like as a jump for you?
It was huge, and I think the challenge we've got is 39 schools. I mean, we don't have the biggest schools.
Yeah.
With us being a Diocese and maths, we support the vast majority of 38 to 39 are church schools, and church schools tend to be rural and very, 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 very small. So in terms of pupil numbers, we're not one of the biggest trusts at all. Just over around 8,000 pupils, we're not massive, but with 39 schools, we are one of the biggest trusts in the country.
Yeah, in terms of school numbers. Is that hard for you to kind of manage the fact that you've got probably 4 big secondary school numbers, 5 big secondary school numbers, but spread out over 39 schools? I suppose that probably makes it more difficult to manage, because you've got then 39 different cultures, leadership teams.
Schools will have the same. There are different problems clearly, but a school of as one of mine is, a school of 28 will still have the same organisational need as a school of 450. There'll be different operational stuff that the heads have to deal with in terms of scale, but for the support required from the central team, there's still a head in each one. There's still, in terms of that, especially that back office side of it, there's still an impact from my director of education. There's still teachers that need training and supporting, and you do that in five big secondaries, the same numbers of pupils. You need a much smaller team, but you'll have the similar amount of, probably more funding, because it's secondary funded.
Yeah.
So we could sit and whinge about it, but we don't. It's one of those. It's what we've got and what we believe in. So we're having to look at ways in which we can support smaller schools, both educationally and financially. Because on their own, it's really, really, really tough, and that's where the power of the maths comes in massively. For in our case, is that we to utilise strength capacity through the maths to support these smaller schools. Where your head is sort of doing, when they're standalone, the head is locking up, opening, locking up, sorting out the drains, doing as well as probably teaching the majority of the day.
It's like like a managing director of a company, right? There's a startup company where you at the start, when you start, you are doing everything. You're making desks and chairs, to working out how the printer works properly and stuff like that. So
it is completely different. So when I was a head, I had 2 deputies, 5 assistant heads, where all the heads of departments, and it was in that kind of, I was in that kind of leadership and oversight position, whereas some of these smaller heads, so we are doing everything. So part of our duty as a mat is to make life as easy as we can for those guys. We want, in our trust, we've got to make sure that we keep everyone focused, close to the work, and focused on what they what they are there to do. So for our head teachers, it's in the name. They're our best. They're our lead teachers in the school. They've got to be focused on teaching and learning. They've got to be focused on ensuring that the quality of teaching, the quality of the education from every one of their teachers, for every one of their kids, is as best is at least good, and it will be at the standard they'll be happy to send their own children to.
Yeah,
that's the marker that we always set down. Is are you happy? Would you be happy for your own kids to go sit in any one of your classes? And if there's classes that you wouldn't want your own kids sat in, then why are they good enough for someone else's?
Yeah.
That's where we bring the power, the mat together, and we like to utilise the development of subject communities across the trust. Because a school with 5 teachers may not have a geography specialist or a history specialist or a language specialist, but we may have one in that part of the county. We may have one over there. So we bring those guys. Bring those guys together in the sort of in our maths community, our English community. Then maybe people then can access
lesson plans and things like that.
All of that, and if they want to see people in situ, rather than having these guys out trekking across to see an individual teach, we'll if you want geography support to see how geography is taught really well to year 4s, right, go to this school. So we leave the expert in school, we leave the expert in front of their kids, and we have people visit the schools to learn from.
Makes sense.
Guys who are top of the game.
Yeah, makes sense. Do you think that will change now because of COVID, in the sense that everyone's now used to doing what we're doing now, video conferencing? And
I think so. It's definitely shifted how what we used to do, and all of our CPD and teacher development was always at head office in Ely. But we've now shifted all of it online. Some of it's sort of pre-recorded with a follow-up Q&A a little bit on later on. Some of it is live sessions, webinar type approach, and it's been really successful. The amount of the take-up has been great, and the feedback has been really positive. So I don't think you can ever forgo face-to-face completely.
Of course,
there's always an important element of that, but we're definitely looking at next year for our CPD offer, blending between online pre-work that can be done with pre-recorded videos, Q&A sessions online, with a face-to-face element a little bit later on, and it'll certainly have our subject communities work when they can dial in like this rather than trekking across Norfolk and Cambridge.
Yeah, of course, because that means is a day out of the office rather than 2 hours on a training course.
Yeah, completely, and especially when the one for us, the joining of the subject communities, because for that, if you wait until the end of the day, some of us where our schools are situated could have an hour's drive to get to the meeting place. At the end, do your 2 hours meeting, and then you've got an hour's trip back. It's sort of tending to 7-8 o'clock at night.
Yeah,
at the moment, whereas now we've finally worked out how Zoom works. We can get it done.
Yeah, of course.
I bought shares in Zoom about 6 months ago.
Imagine. So, talk to me about. Obviously, you're in a Church of England school, right? And you're religious yourself.
Yeah.
Did that have a bearing in terms of, was that important for the chairman or whoever was it that hired you? Was that important that those kind of religious roots were embedded in the top?
Yeah, I think clearly it is important, and part of our whole vision is that our education, we want to be able to provide that high quality education that's always underpinned by our Christian distinctiveness. And for us, that's sort of representing our values of love, community, trust, respect, and ambition. And we put love as that main value, because you don't often see it. And people we had a big debate whether we should or shouldn't include love as a value. We felt it kind of did really represent our sort of Christian values to the organisation. and that helps shape our decision making. And whilst that doesn't mean, we've been quite clear, it doesn't mean that we shy away from difficult decisions, but we do so compassionately, and we do what the consequences will be on people of the decisions that we make. But if it's got to be a difficult one, then we do it in the right way. That's fair and considerate. But it's during the interview. Back to the original question. Back to the interview process. The trustees didn't set out explicitly to find a practicing Christian for the role, because they wanted the best candidate for the role. What they wanted to ensure was that whoever was appointed had had an understanding of and was sympathetic to the Christian values of the organisation.
Yeah.
So that's what they set out through, and that's part of what we still look for in our recruitment process. Is that we are openly proud of being a Christian organisation, and we're looking for people who will who support that view and support those values when they come to us. But you don't have to be of any particular religious denomination to work for us. It's the fact that we are open to all faiths and none, and it says quite clearly that's what our schools are. We're church schools. We have a quite distinctively Christian ethos in our schools, but they are open to children of all faiths and of no faith as well.
Yep, makes sense. What do you do to on a personal level then? So you've obviously stopped the rugby now. Too old and slow for that.
When you said that, she just started laughing in the background.
You said it, to be fair, earlier. I was just repeating what you said. There you go. I didn't say it. What do you do now? So what do you do to unwind and relax?
It's a lot of just keeping fit at the moment. So after finished rugby, I took up triathlon. So I thought that looked
challenging.
Fun. Yeah. So I took that up. So I did that for a few years. Did all right. Got to the European Championships and the World Championships.
Oh wow.
A few years ago in that. So that was good. That was good fun. And then,
what's it like doing the triathlon when you've got a crowd of people swimming next to you? I think I'd freak out.
That was my least favourite bit of the race. It's you just, wherever you look, there's legs and arms, and it's horrible.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
I was going to say.
I just sort of stick my head down, add to the confusion, and get out as quickly as I can.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think you'd either want to be at the front, the back, or the sides, and I don't think I'd be worrying about race position when I first got in that water. I'd just be like, let me get out of this crowd, because. I
just try and find someone who's slightly faster than me, and then stay as close to their feet as I can, and let them tow me around.
Getting their slipstream.
That's it. Just tuck behind them. So I did that for a while. Then I took up a triathlon. Took up Ironman. So I did an Ironman race. Because I wanted something a little bit more challenging than the sprints, because I've done all the sprint triathlon stuff. So I thought I'd do an Ironman.
What's the talk to me about the Ironman distances? So what have you got to do?
It's a 2.4 mile swim, 112 mile bike ride, then a marathon. Yeah.
How long did it take you?
10 hours, 8 minutes.
That's your record?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's some going, isn't it?
Yeah, it was fairly swift. I think I came 21st in that race.
Wow.
About 1,000 out of 1,000. So I was chuffed on that one. Although
how long ago was this?
That was 2016. Man. So yeah, 4 years ago.
Was that one of the hardest things you've ever had to do?
No. the hardest one was the year after, but the 216 one, I finished the race, finished, looked at my time, and said to my wife, I'm going to enter next year. God, I've got 8 minutes, eight minutes. God, yeah, can't believe I didn't break 10 hours. And then she politely reminded me that our second child was born in the May. That was the July. A couple of months earlier, my daughter was born, and I'd kind of not participated in any parenting at that stage because I was either at school or I was up at 4 a.m. training, or training when I got back from school for the summer. So she sort of said,
I'd prefer it if you didn't.
Should be a parent. Oh,
Yeah.
right, you got a point. You got a point. So I thought, what do I need to do the following? I thought, oh, I've got to do something. So I did I entered into an ultra marathon in 2017. So I thought I'll do that. That was 100 kilometers.
Running.
Yeah. So I entered that. So I thought I can do that. It's only one. I don't have to run. Don't have to swim. Don't have to cycle. I have a bit more spare time with the family. So I did. I did that.
What's that? 60 miles, isn't it?
Yeah, 62, 63, something like that. Yeah.
So it's like nearly 3 marathons.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, that would be.
I
can't even. So I've just started running again. So I'd basically gone from, like, you know, when lockdown started, everyone was doing that 5K for £5, and you got to nominate 5 people, right? So you're going to laugh at me. So I'd done the first one, and honestly, I've never run before, right? I've done the first one in 36 minutes, yeah, and I got bullied basically in my WhatsApp group chats from all my friends, and did you walk it?
I believe 36 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. So I was like, right, that's embarrassing. 26, I thought, I've got to beat that time. So I then got, and actually, the second one I quite enjoyed. I was like, oh, actually, I quite enjoyed this. And a chap that I know does this running coaching. So he's like a running coach. He's he does his 5K in like 15 minutes or something stupid. It's ridiculous. And so I was in a 4-week plan to then get, and I got in 4 weeks, I got my 5K down to 26 minutes. And that was my PB is 26 minutes for a 5K.
That's a bit better. It's a bit better, down to 26 minutes.
Yeah, it was a bit better. But then I wanted to go like sub 27 is what I wanted to, I thought, right, I target myself like sub 27. I got it 26. And again, like I was annoyed that I didn't get it, one more second, it'd been 25:59, but never mind. It was exactly 26 minutes. And then I stopped, and it's just like, and then I've done one every 2 weeks, like a run. But I really, really, really enjoy it. So yeah, this morning I started again this week on another, but on an 8-week plan this time. And I done a fartlek session.
Oh, yeah.
So 10 minute easy, 10 minute faster, 10 minute easy. So I done that this morning, and do you know what? I'm really loving it. And I said to a couple of my colleagues, I said, I don't know why I stopped, because it is so enjoyable. It's you on your own. It's you against your own mind, basically, isn't it?
I find it really cathartic, and it's just it's a good release. So keep that exercise going, and then I did that run. The big one, and then following summer, I slipped 2 discs in my back, so I've had to stop for a while. So I had a couple of injections in there to try and sort the discs out. So I'm working my way back to fitness. I'm cycling again now. I'm running again.
Yeah.
Back lifting some weights, and doing a lot of skipping.
Oh, there we go.
My new thing.
Sure. Isn't that going to hurt your back?
I don't jump very high, so it's all right. It just keeps everything in line. I stand there on the patio, skipping. So I think
I've come back with whip marks all over my leg.
I did when I was learning. And my wife's like, "Are you sure?" I was like, "Yeah, just downstairs skipping."
What is it about sport then that keeps you motivated? Why what's that release about?
I think that's
But just to expand on that, because that's not just you going out for a 5K or a 10K. To run 63 miles is ridiculous. Like, do you constantly run that, or do you stop at any point? Or
that long one. I ran continuously. I did 50K continuously. So I got to the halfway point without stopping, and then I did I did 200 meters. 200 meters. What was it? 200 meters walking, 800 meters running. To about 80K, and then we hit. Then I was on a shingle beach at that point for about 5K. So I just trudged through the shingle for that 5K, and then the final 15 was back on a run again. So it's
wow.
yeah, just don't like losing. I think compared to that, I set myself. I think if I want to do what I can do, and your body's awesome. It can go. Anyone's body can go a lot further and a lot harder than they believe it can. And if you can just switch off that nagging little voice in there that says it's hurting, can't go any further, you can keep going. We've got enough fat stores to keep us going at a steady pace for ages. So I think it's just that ability just to keep push that little bit harder when you're on the bike. Can you go that a little bit faster? Your legs are hurting. Can you just go that a little bit more? And that's what I've always done. I get a bit obsessive over stuff like skipping. I can't just sit and skip. I've got to be able to beat my numbers, or beat my numbers, learn different tricks and all the rest of it. Just because
that destination mindset.
It is, yeah. Just what can be done next. So I'm always on that lookout for those new different challenges and all the rest of it. But clearly the kids are 8 and 4. They've got to fit in around those guys, and my wife as well.
Indeed. Well, very, very, very interesting. It's been really, really good. So thank you ever so much for being on. And it's been great to get to know the person behind the job title. Thank you very much, Adrian. Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for listening to that episode of the P&E podcast. If you like what you heard, please make sure that you share this episode via your social media channels, as it really does help us to gain traction in promoting this podcast series. Please make sure that you also subscribe to the channel that you're listening via, as you'll then get notifications as soon as we release our next podcast episode. Thank you.